The trusted advisor, that nomenclature, it's used all the time, almost to the point, like, we have to add value, and it becomes so ubiquitous that what does it really mean? But we have to work harder than ever to earn the right to be a trusted advisor. And I think this goes really well into we've talked about it, but I want to dive right into the trust issue. And not only are we on the decline in trust, but out of that same LinkedIn Edelman report, 32,000 respondents, 61% thought that businesses selling to them were being misleading, intentionally misleading. There's a whole nother report that came out that said that of the materials that we put together that represent the value that we create for our clients, 74% don't believe them. They think they're not worth the time. And there was a third study that came out. This goes right back to Jamie, what you were saying earlier, is that we trust our peers more than anyone else. We trust our peers at the same level as scientists in terms of credibility. So when you talk about the voice of the customer leading ours, what we're doing is we're saying we're putting the most trusted voice to our audience in front of ours. Because unfortunately, we are lumped, no matter how trustworthy each and every single one of us is, we're lumped into that crowd of the B2B sellers. And we are the bottom of the totem pole. We have skin in the game. We have a lot to benefit from if we make the sale. That's why there's always in conversation that's a seller to a buyer, there is a shield that's up. You're being sold to.
Mhm.
So I want to ask that in that state, we talk about pandemics, we talk about epidemics. We are in the middle of one called trust. And trust, where our brands are trust marks. Remember back to, branding or marketing 101 in school. What do we do about the trust epidemic? Jamie, I'll kick it off with you.
Sure. And I'm not, by the way, again, I'm not surprised by the data. And we have to, in reflecting on that, that those sentiments are derived by actual real world experience. And so if trust is eroding, it's because somewhere along the way, the experiences people have had in buying products or working with vendors or services has eroded or been breached in some capacity, which is why trust is super important because we know that other studies indicate that when a buyer or customer trusts you, they're two times more likely to purchase again or expand or do more business with you. And so you need to be sure of that. But the reality is trust takes time to build and to earn. And it's not just when the buyer becomes a customer. It starts from the first moment that they start having a conversation with you or hear about you. And I add on the hear about you because, again, they're more likely to trust the information that's coming from their peers. And so you want to make sure that your customers are armed with the information that they need to effectively. And they're only going to do it if you've actually delivered. So let's be super clear on that. Part of the trust equation is you've actually delivered the things that you promised that you would. And if you've breached, that's the first thing. That's where your net retention rate is going to go out the door. And so you have to be careful of that. One of the things that we had talked about before is having some kind of trust building program and seeing it and embracing it as a imperative, not just a value that sits on the shelf and we sometimes go back and we'll look at them go, oh, these are great values. No, this is an actual strategic imperative for the organization. And every single department will define how they execute on trust as it pertains to the customer. These are things like number of bugs that you managed to in software. You're always going to have something, or making sure that you meet milestone deadlines, or if there's a failure point, that you are transparent and you communicate. And by the way, there's a lot of emotional equity that you can gain when a customer trusts you, that if something does go haywire, they're more forgiving on that. And they sometimes want to come to your defense if it's something that goes public. But I think to instill it into the DNA of the organization, you have to define what trust means from the marketplace and how every single department builds it, maintains it, and manages it because they have to have that clarity. This is getting really prescriptive with what that means for engineering and the quality of the code that they release to our customer support teams and meeting implementation timelines to even marketing and truth in advertising.